Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you all had a very, very Merry Christmas. It appears the president has. After his historic tax cut victory, the president is back to work, and hopeful Democrats will help his party tackle health care. That's coming up next. The president tweeting, based on the fact that the very unfair and unpopular individual mandate has been terminated as part of our tax cut bill, which essentially repeals overtime Obamacare, the Democrats and Republicans will eventually come together and develop a great new health care plan. But with his optimism, of course, resistance from Democrats like Bernie Sanders.
All across this country are people catching on to the fact that Donald Trump ran for president saying that he was going to defend the interests of the working class and middle class, and it turned out he lied. You have a president who told us that he was going to provide health care to everybody. Then he proposed 30 million people being thrown off of health insurance. His tax plan was going to benefit the middle class. The bulk of the benefits go to the rich and large corporations.
Bernie is very upset. He is airing some of his grievances against the president. So this Democratic narrative, how truthful is that? Are middle-class Americans and lower-income Americans actually not getting a tax cut?
No, 91% of the middle class in this country are getting some kind of tax break. I think that Bernie Sanders is just upset that he can no longer write off all three of his houses in this tax bill. And it's clear that unless the left has an enemy, class warfare going on in the name of socialism, they're not going to be happy about any of this. We've heard the argument from him also that, look, corporations got a permanent tax break while individuals did not. Fine, that is actually true. However, the reason for that is because you need 60 votes to have permanent individual tax cuts, and the way that you do that is by getting Democrats on board. Bernie Sanders refused to step up. He didn't write his own bill, and here we are with the individual tax rate being temporary. They could vote next year to change it to be permanent.
Health care proved to be much more difficult for Republicans than tax reform, and you know that's frustrating for the party. This is, however, a big victory and could have a great economic impact. What would it take for Democrats to acknowledge that tax cuts are in fact good for the economy?
All Democrats or Bernie Sanders? Because there's definitely a bit of a chasm there.
He speaks for quite a few Democrats.
He does, an increasing amount, which we have discussed. I believe it to be problematic that the party continues to shift to the left when the map keeps lighting up red. At least in 2016 it did, and throughout the course of the Obama years. Bernie Sanders, you're never going to sell on it. I think it's 80% are getting a tax cut of some kind. I wish that they had gone for larger tax cuts on the individual rate and maybe a little bit higher on the corporate side. You know, we may fundamentally disagree whether trickle down works. I don't believe that it does. But we have seen the beginnings of those bonuses, a little wage bump. But this also doesn't come into effect fully until after the midterms. So we won't know how much Americans are going to feel like they're really better off before then. So I think it's a little complicated. Why are you laughing?
No, but I want to ask you about this, David, because
the last statement's ridiculous.
Okay, but I want
to
ask you about this because there's a difference between having a tax break throughout 2018, but really not feeling effect until you file your tax return in 2019.
Right.
So how much of it is theoretical and how much of it is actual, and does it matter?
Well, it's all actual in this respect. You make your decisions based on what you have to file for in the following year. If you talk to any accountant, not pundits on the Democrat side, sorry, Jessica, I know I love you, but if you talk to an accountant, you talk to an accounting firm, people are going to make their decisions based on the way they have to file their taxes, much in the way many are going to rush before the end of this year to claim certain deductions where in certain categories they may get a bigger benefit. And when you look at the tax cuts, which do take effect in part in February, and you look at S-Corps, LLPs, LLCs, their decisions are going to be made on quarterly filings and projections next year. So the actual effect is there. The effect on the economy, by the way, and I'm going to use AT&T as the example of all the companies, but there are many others. If you give $1,000 to 200,000 people, that's $200 million you've injected into the economy, whether it goes into a bank or into a Christmas present or into a new pair of hockey skates for the kids or a baseball uniform. That is money that is spurring consumer economy. So right away, PNC Bank, Wells Fargo, all these other companies giving bonuses, GoDaddy giving bonuses. That means that those people are going to use that money. That's an injection of consumer activity. That is the economic equation that matters.
Well, and I'd rather see a company like AT&T give some of their employees $1,000 in a bonus check as opposed to the government subsidizing either health care or just handing out cash willy-nilly, because it's very different when the government gives out our money versus a corporation that is trying to use bonuses as a reinvestment.
Big time, Kennedy. I think the only person who used the word trickle down was the Democrat on the panel. Isn't that right? We don't use that word, Jessica.
Why not?
Trickle down. That's it.
It's outdated.
Yeah.
It's a Democrat slur. It always was.
I know some real slurs. That is not the slur.
You guys have been using it since I was in high school, Jessica. Or not you. You're much younger than me, Jessica.
I am.
Look,
I'm a millennial baby.
And
even
she
Bernie
doesn't like
Sanders.
Bernie, which is amazing.
Well, look, Bernie Sanders
the
admitted.
worst.
I saw him with Jake Tapper.
Yes,
he took
on
the
State of the
91. Yes,
Union.
he
Yes.
said 91%, and Bernie said yes, it does, but they expire. They expire. He kept saying they expire. Well, then just
But they never
re-up
tell
it.
you why, to Katie's earlier point. If the Democrats, who have cried for years that they want to lower taxes on the lower rungs of the income ladder in America, whatever they want to call them, poor, middle class, or otherwise, well, here's a case where they could have voted for lowering those tax rates. So
Well,
I'm saying
maybe the
Democrats
incentives
are
that were available
hypocrites.
to us would not have meshed with our ideology. There was the
So
Republicans were so
economics is
set
not
on
ide-
lowering.
but
I
economics
mean,
is
that's what
not
you say, and
ideology.
there are plenty of Nobel Prize winners on the economic side who
You
are
mean the same ones that are
Democrats
doing the
and liberals.
global warming analysis.
Oh, I'm sorry
But
that you don't believe in
Okay.
science. But the idea that you are opposed to the government spending our money, what I believe that this corporate tax rate does is basically saying that corporations are better equipped to tell us what to do with our money because they're deciding what will
No, they
eventually
get to
trickle
decide
down.
what they do.
they're not.
No.
They get to decide what they do with their own money instead of the government
But you're
forcing
saying
them
it's going
to do
to get
something
us.
with
You're
their
gonna
money.
say that the
That is
rising
the
tide
American
will
dream,
raise
that
our
you
boats.
start a
But if you
business.
give it to
If your business
the
makes
tops
money,
of
you get to
corporations-
decide what you do with
Okay,
your
but
money.
We have
That
had
is the American
corporate
dream.
Here's another
profits for
difference.
years, and wages have not gone up.
That's because there's
Wages
been
actually
so much,
are
But
increasing.
this is why we have not seen wages go up, why we haven't seen corporations hiring. Now that we are. There's been so much regulation, federal regulation in this country over the past 8 years, which President Trump has taken off the table. 22 regulations repealed for everyone that is put on the books. That has been a wet blanket over the economy for nearly a decade. It's proven in the GDP numbers. We've seen it when you talk to small businesses and corporations about why they're not hiring. And it's because of an unstable environment, whether it's Obamacare, new federal regulations. Those things all cost an enormous amount of money, and corporations aren't going
That's
to sit back.
absolutely right. It's
Right.
cost
It
of
costs
compliance.
money, exactly.
And those are barriers to entry, and those are the things that keep people
Barriers
from
to
starting
hiring.
businesses and growing businesses
Right.
because they just don't have
But
the capital
here-
because they are so
but here's another
hamstrung.
aspect of this
What's
that gets
wrong with
ignored.
corporations making money? I want to know that.
I
What
am
is wrong
fully
with
in favor
that?
of it, but I'm also in favor of middle and lower class Americans making a good wage.
are.
And no,
Under
they're
this,
not.
they're
If
getting more of their
Obama
money
was
back.
president, you would say that the wages weren't going up high enough. And
Because
that
they
society
did.
was-
They were
but-
stagnant.
But suddenly, in the
But
last
rather-
11 months, we've had a eureka
Yes,
moment, and the
yes,
economy
actually,
functions
wages
perfectly.
have increased, Jessica.
Corporate CEOs
That's
have made
data.
it perfectly
That's not
clear that they
Trumpism.
will
That's
not
data.
be paying higher wages from this.
Okay.
Gary Cohn said at a
Because
meeting
he
of them,
was in a
said,
room with people and certain people didn't raise their hand, that's your data?
Yeah.
An informal poll in a room of people versus actual
what's
raw
your data
numbers?
that 5 or 6 companies gave these bonuses right now, $1,000, that you think it's all going to be
the
fixed?
fact that consumer confidence is up, GDP growth is up, the stock market is up,
yeah,
wages
all
are
those
up,
things happened
unemployment
during
is
the Obama
down.
years too.
That's data.
Actually, if you look at more data and the economic equation on this, something that's important in America is the measure of home buyers. The home mortgage interest, they did a survey of this. Interest in home mortgage is at an 18-year high. It's a spike that's happened since the beginning of this year. There's something else. You use the term trickle down. Trickle down once was a bad phrase for the Republicans to use. It's actually downward pressure from the economy in what the economic activity levels are created by corporations and wealthier individuals, investors, or otherwise in the society. It's also the upward pressure when you lift wages, when you lift tax burden, regulatory burden on the lower income scale, when you have over 80% of the people, according to the IRS data, paying, and they make under $50,000 a year, paying the Obamacare tax penalty, and you lift that from them, that matters to them. Suddenly, $1,000 to a person making $40,000 as a percentage of their earnings and their taxable income becomes great. Last part of this, you double the standard deductions. single parent, or couple.
Well,
and now you release their money for them to use.
Okay,
plus releasing
speaking of
regulatory
doubling,
burden. That's
Rosie
economics.
O'Donnell is doubling down on her Twitter war. She went after Ben Shapiro last week, telling him something so filthy I can't repeat it on a family show.
Rosie said something filthy?
Yeah,
I'm
and
shocked.
she's been busy tweeting out to Paul Ryan when Paul Ryan released a lovely Christmas message expressing his faith and hope. Rosie tweeted, Paul Ryan, don't talk about Jesus after what you just did to our nation. You will go straight to hell. You screwed up, fake altar boy. Hashtag Judas much.
Wow. Tom,
I
your reaction
mean,
to that?
Come on. She put everything in there. Yeah, Rosie, she probably shouldn't tweet. She's not taking advantage of the new expanded Twitter either. Her tweets are still
Quite compressed.
they're very short. You know, President Trump, he's doing the what is it now, 280?
280
It
characters.
goes on forever.
He's filling them out now. I think she's
Do I
stuck
really
in
want to
old
read
Twitter.
a novelette every time I read something?
I'm with you on that. They gave it to me. I've rarely ever used it. I don't need 280 characters in a manifesto. By the way, Rosie's tweets.
I'd take it as a bowling score, though.
Okay, that's a good point. But Rosie's tweets are about as short as her basic intelligence. I mean, it doesn't exist. I remember. No, look. This is a woman who doesn't do the work. She had a show at Sirius. It lasted a few months. Why? I looked at it and said she doesn't do the work. So if she doesn't do the work, she doesn't have the understanding. She's like Chelsea Handler. She's a wannabe
well, and she's also-
who never will be and could never be a has-been.
She's a bomb thrower who's just trying to get a little bit of attention and get the attention of the press and the president. I understand that she's probably quite bored because she has been relieved of her duties from several employers.
This seems unbelievably mean to be only talking about Rosie O'Donnell and kind of she's not a hard worker.
Well, she's
she
the
can't keep a
Did you
job.
read what she said to Ben Shapiro?
Oh, yeah, and I've read what kind of things are said to Rosie O'Donnell, what the President of the United States of America has said about Rosie O'Donnell. Didn't he call her a fat pig?
Did you read what she wrote
I
to
did,
Ben
and
Shapiro?
I don't think
I mean,
any
I keep
of it is
saying that
appropriate,
because I
but
can't repeat it.
But deal with her ideas. I mean, it just doesn't say she loves
It's hard to do what she proposed on Twitter recently.
She's
her
proposing
ideas
that
are a
Ben
little
Shapiro
lacking.
do something that a man and a woman on their honeymoon.
Okay, I would judge Rosie O'Donnell by her ideas if she were actually espousing concrete academic database ideas, but instead she's going off about religion, which leftists don't seem to do until it's convenient for them, and accusing Paul Ryan of and saying he's going to go to hell. I mean, that's who made Rosie O'Donnell God. I don't think we all scared of that. Was really the case.
I thought that was Hillary Clinton.
Remember when
for
she
the left.
desperately wanted to dress up as Steve Bannon for SNL? And they're like,
no, they're like, no, thanks. I don't think so.
No, we're really okay.
We're good.
Thanks,
We don't
Rosie.
need
Why don't you go? Why don't you go lock it up? So, are we going to see any improved discourse? Because Jessica's right about something. It's pretty nasty
thank you.
from
Yeah.
both sides.
No,
I like it.
we're not.
You like it?
Unfortunately,
Down low, that's I like. It's just where I want it.
we're
Let's you
not
take the high
going to
road?
see any
Yeah.
improvement. I hate to say it, and look, you don't have to engage in it. I choose not to engage in it.
Yeah.
I find
Did you hear what
sarcasm.
you just said about Rosie O'Donnell?
because
You don't engage in it?
Okay, actually, factually, I know that she's lazy and doesn't do the work because I used to be in the same
What's
company
wrong with
her.
that?
That's fact. And
That's
her
an
show
act.
died
She's
because of
saying
She
horrible
sounds like
things
Bernie
to people.
Sanders.
No, but here's the thing. I can
disagree
say
with
what
that.
I know
Bernie
about
Sanders,
her.
there is some merit to what he says for communists
I was
and avowed
talking about the
socialists.
working part of
No, but
of
I think Bernie actually
Bernie
is
Sanders.
an authentic person who has a heart, and he operates with the best
He
intentions.
truly believes what he's
Right.
saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Socialism and communism operated with the best intentions, and we won't even go into the data on how many died and suffered
100 million.
under socialism and communism. Look,
Katie
as
just
far
said
as
that one, right?
I have a T-shirt. I
That's
actually
why
have
I
a
have
T-shirt
Katie
that
here.
says "Communism killed 100 million people, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt."
Yeah, but to the rhetoric, I wish the rhetoric would get better on policy, but unfortunately, Twitter and social media today and the environment is heavily polarized. You know, if you want to use something, I use sarcasm. Maybe you can throw in a couple facts. You can actually tweet.
Is that an
people.
app?
Suffice to say, Ben
It's
Shapiro
in the-
will
it's
not
in
be
the
taking
dictionary
Rosie
under
up on
S
her offer.
right after A.
She blocked him.
Oh,
He won the argument. She blocked him. He went to Twitter and complained because it was sexual harassment.
It was.
But it didn't violate.
Imagine what that was.
Until
Well, it didn't
Twitter
violate-
changed their mind, which they finally did.
They did. They
and they
deleted the
deleted the tweet.